we're going to return to equations in just a little bit, but for this section, we're going to begin practicing one of the most important skills of math. The whole point of math is that it's this language that can explain the real world. And so as we get better and better at this skill, what we want to do is to be able to explain reality, the real world, with these math equations. And it can be done surprisingly often. Well, with that in mind, we need to take our first steps there, and what we need to do is think of ourselves as a translator. We're going to take the English expression and we're going to turn that into math language. So here's what I'm saying. We're going to turn that English sentence into math, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to go one word at a time. So it turns out here, so we've got the number 143. Okay, so I've got a number 143. I'm going to translate that. That's 143. Now is, in math language, is an equal sign. And we have the product of negative 11 and y. Well, product means multiplication. So I'm multiplying together these two numbers. And I get this equation. So one step at a time I created this. Okay, well we know how to solve this now that it's in math language. I have two numbers being, they're factors. Negative 11 times y are two numbers that multiply together to get this 143. So we're going to divide away the negative 11 on one side, got to do it to the other, and we get our solution. Okay, we're going to try it again. The number 132, so I'm working my way across here, is the product of negative 12 and y. So I'm multiplying two things together. I get this. Okay, we know how to solve this here. I've got to get y by himself. And I'm just going to do this. Negative 12s will cancel. I don't know what 132 is divided by 12. Oh, I guess I should have. And it's negative 11 since we had a positive divided by a negative. And there's my answer. Okay, if you're having any trouble with this, try this yourself and pause it. But the number 117 is the product of these two. All I've got to do now is divide both sides by the negative 13. And I get negative 9. Okay, just the same idea, but we're going to change to division here. N divided by 8. Okay, so I've got n, and it's being divided by 8, is negative 32. Okay, well we know how to do this too. To get rid of n being divided by 8, I'm going to multiply one side. If I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. And I get n is negative, because I have one negative sign, 256. Okay, n divided by 7 is equal to negative 21. Okay, to get rid of that, I'm going to multiply both sides by 7. Got n is negative, because I had one negative sign. That turns out to be 147. I'm using a calculator here. Okay, another one here. We've got n divided by 8 is equal to negative 56. So I'm allowed to multiply on one side. I can multiply on the other. The 8s would cancel. And I've got n as negative 448. Okay, the quotient of. Now, this is a little bit more complicated, but quotient still means division. Is 68. So I can multiply both sides by negative 4 again. They're gone over here. Y is by himself. Negative 272. Quotient of q and negative 8. Q is 72. Multiply both sides by negative 8. So I'm multiplying that by negative 8. So these would go. Negative 576. Okay, a lot of the same thing here. Quotient of p and negative 9 is 81. So multiply both sides by -9. Those will go. I get -729. Okay, now this is all pretty similar, but they've thrown fractions in here on us. So we have 3/4 of p. 3/4 of p means to multiply. If I want half of something, half of 8, I'd multiply it by 1/2. 1/2 of 200, I multiply it by 1/2. So this 3/4 of means multiply, and it is 18. Now we've seen how to tackle this. We're going to flip this upside down. It really is just division, but it's keep, change, flip, so you can just multiply it by 4/3 on both sides. You're left with p equals, now I'm going to reduce this. I get 6, 3 and 18 reduce, and I get 24. Okay, we've got 2/5 of f is 16. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5/2. So reduces those down. I get f is 40. Okay, I'd love it if you try it yourself, but this is pretty easy. You may already have it. 3/4 of f is 21. I'm going to multiply both sides by 4/3. Cancel, 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 cancel. So f is, that reduces, 28. Okay, so now we've changed it here. We're working our way across to translate it. The sum. So I'm going to know that I'm going to have to add. Now what am I summing? I'm summing 3/8 and x is 1/2. Okay, so we want to know what x is. We want to get him by himself. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to subtract 3/8 from both sides. Now, how do we do this? I have to get a common denominator, so I'm going to get them both over 8. But I can't just turn 2 into 8. I have to multiply it by 4. But if you do it on the bottom, you do it to the top. Okay, so I get x is 1/8. Okay, the sum of 5/8 and x is 1/4. Okay, well I want to know what x is, but I'm allowed to just subtract away that 5/8 so I can get this all alone. I'm going to work this over here. I need them to have a common denominator. Okay, multiply both top and the bottom by 2. Now, it's going to be over 8 when you work with fractions, but it's 2 minus 5, so I'm going to get -3/8. So you have $2, but you owe me 5, you'd be in the hole, -3/8. The sum of 3/4 and x is 5/6. Okay, so to get x alone, I'm going to subtract 3/4 from both sides, but we're working with fractions, so I'm going to bring that over here so I can get this settled. Now I'm looking for a common denominator. Do you agree that we could get to 12? So 6 times 2 would get me there, 5 times 2. So if I'm multiplying that by 2, I got to do it to the top. This times 3, but if you do it to the bottom, you got to do it to the top. Okay, so it turns out to be that x is 1/12. So look this time. I had $10, but you owed me 9, so it's positive. I've got 1/12. Okay, so we're going to set up, we got a little bit more of a word problem here. We've got 6 pounds of grapes for $10.75. what is the cost of 1 pound? Well, I think you could probably just do this in your head without making an equation out of it, but we're doing, if I have 6 at where I don't know the cost, so I've got a little dictionary here that tells me what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the cost of 1 pound of grapes. Well, 6 times the cost of 1 would equal 1075. I think you probably could have intuitively just known you needed to divide by 6, but we get $1.79 per pound. Okay, so we want the cost of 1 bottle. So 24 times whatever the cost of that 1 bottle would be gets us 936. Again, you probably saw you're just dividing by 24, but that's what we're going to do this way as well. So x is going to be 39 cents each. Okay, so cost per person. So 6 people times their individual cost is $34.98. 6 people can play on one lane for $34.98. So here's their total, but I've got 6 people playing. What's their individual rate? That would give me the total. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. $5.83 per person, which is a strange price. Okay. All right, some of these are, I'm not sure the application of these is all that important, but here we go. So I have a car that originally cost, or no, sorry, we don't know the original price of the car. I don't know how much it originally cost, but I know that this guy paid $12,000 for it. And they're telling us that this new price is 3/4 of the old one. Okay, so if I had the original price and I multiplied it by 3/4, I'm supposed to get 12,000. So we'll solve this equation by multiplying both sides by 4/3. The car must have originally cost $1,600. Okay, so we've got, this is needlessly confusing, but x is the assessed value of her house. All right, so here's what we know. Her house cost something, and she paid taxes that cost $1,800. Well, how much did she pay? She paid 15/1000 of the house's value. So if it's like of 3/4 of, well, we've got 15/1000ths of the assessed value equals 1,800. So I'm going to multiply both sides. Okay, some strange numbers here, but yeah, this turns out that it reduces. This turns into 120. So I've got 120 times 1,000. So these all canceled, obviously. And our house must be worth 120,000. Okay, so we want to know here the number of flats of flowers. I would actually probably do this a little differently. Yeah, I wouldn't do this algebraically like this. Hold on one second. Yeah, this one doesn't make a lot of intuitive sense to me here, but so here's what we would have. So we had total flats So if I've got 2/3 of her whole garden is 14 flats. That's what I think they're asking us to do here. So 2/3 of whatever the total would be turns out to be 14. Well, what's the total? We would multiply both by 3/2. These will go. I can reduce this down. X is 21. Okay, this one made my head spin a little bit, but this is what they're saying. 2/3 of our total equals 14. We crunch that down by multiplying both sides by 3/2, and there we go. Okay, so we're going to get back to solving equations here, but we were taking some baby steps to help us learn the important skill of turning English into math language. We're just doing some basic translation of like translating between those two languages and then solving some simple equations.